And I'd like to go back to the Jimmy Carter administration for just a minute, because I didn't want to join that administration. And the president said, but you have to come. We have to anticipate where there's going to be trouble in the world, and people are not going to believe us. And you were with Martin Luther King, and I said, but Barbara Jordan ought to be the ambassador to the United Nations. She's far more intelligent and eloquent, and she's a constitutional lawyer, and altogether, she's a far superior candidate. He said, you're absolutely right. Except that she was not with Martin Luther King. And what makes you special and what makes Atlanta special is that around the world, we have come to symbolize the concept of human rights with integrity and with vision and with a sense of fairness. And so I joined that administration, and we knew that there was potentially trouble between Egypt and Israel, and neither one of them wanted peace, nor did they want war. And so President Carter forced them together in a Camp David Accord that lasted almost 40 years. Actually, Begin and Sadat never spoke together, never met together. They only shook hands with each other when they went to the White House to celebrate. And same thing happened in Southern Africa. All of Southern Africa, by and large, was put on a path to peace and stability. And when people used to ask in the 60s and 70s, when would there be a bloodbath in South Africa, we decided there would not be a bloodbath in South Africa, but that there would be a peaceful democratic transition to majority rule, and that blacks and whites and Asians and coloreds could all work together and live together if we got involved and helped. And we didn't send troops, and we didn't spend any whole lot of money. By and large, it was an aggressive diplomacy. It was trade. It was tourism. It was student exchanges. It was everything that this place stands for. And so I say, don't despair of the world in which we live. There are problems. There is the possibility and potential of chaos. And if we don't do anything, that's what happens. When we turned our backs in Somalia because of Black Hawk Down, we didn't know that within a decade we'd have not only a failed state, but a whole generation of pirates. You think, we're back in the 17th century somewhere. And so America's leadership and a global vision is absolutely necessary, but that needs to be and must be a peaceful vision that shares prosperity, and it must be overwhelmingly based on the constitutional vision, because that's where we started all this mess. When the founders of our country had the, as we used to say, Snuffy Smith, the bodacious audacity to say all men, not all Americans, but all men, all of humanity are endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights. And amongst these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, people took that seriously. And our churches and our synagogues and our humanitarian agencies took seriously the notion that we were all created by the same Creator. Whatever name and whatever faith and whatever tradition, we honored that. There was something divine in each and every human being. And so we went around the world thinking that everybody should be saved. Sometimes saved meant religious, sometimes it meant education, sometimes it meant health, sometimes it meant agriculture, sometimes it just plain meant doing business together, trade. But it was a planet that understood that we were a small planet, and that, as Martin Luther King used to say, we must learn together to live together as brothers and sisters, or we will perish together as fools. And so in celebrating and giving thanks for the survival of the events of 9/11, let's realize that America can never rest on its laurels, that history is moving forward as fast, if not faster, than the speed of sound. In fact, we're approaching now the speed of light. And that means that the insights and the experiences and the ideas which we are struggling with are also bursting forth in strange places that we don't know and we don't understand. And yet they understand us, and they are looking to us and depending on us. And just as the first responders did not let down the city of New York and our nation, somehow we have got to turn ourselves into a people of first responders that will take on whatever challenges the world might have and do it in peace and share our vision of love and friendship and prosperity, and really do live together as brothers and sisters and break bread together just as we have here, sing and celebrate, applaud and give thanks, for we are wonderfully blessed. But my grandmama always told me, to them to whom much has been given, of them is much required. Not expected, but required. And so because we are amongst the most blessed people on the face of the planet, a lot is required of us. And we've never shirked our duty, our responsibility, or our calling to live up to the principles of this great nation and the faith of our fathers and mothers. Thank you very much. Well, he spelled out the fact that he wanted to redeem the soul of America from the triple evils of racism, war, and poverty. Now, I think racism he was talking about was legal racism, which no longer exists. In spite of Afghanistan and Iraq and all the other tensions in the world, since I grew up in World War II, where tens of millions of people were killed, I watched the numbers, 60,000 in Korea, 50,000 in Vietnam, 10,000 in Iraq, and 5,000 or less in Afghanistan. Now, remember, those are just American deaths. And there's one thing I meant to say that I'll say now, but that shortly after the 9/11, I received a phone call from Thich Nhat Hanh, a Buddhist monk who had come to see Martin Luther King in 1966 to explain to him that Buddhists in Vietnam wanted American friendship and that they were more afraid of the Chinese than they were the Americans. And it was his influence that kind of got Martin Luther King involved even more so in opposing the war in Vietnam. Well, he called me a few days after 9/11, and he said that he was going to go to Ground Zero and begin a fast. And he asked me to join him because he wanted to fast because he didn't want the American people to respond to this evil with more evil. And he wanted us to find ways to in his Buddhist language, to understand that we can and must learn through suffering, and not just blindly retaliate. So I went there with him and began his fast for the first weekend with him, and he's still around preaching and praying. And we do have problems. In fact, we are on earth for problems. That's what we're built for. If you got a car, you got to go somewhere. If you got a mind, you got to think. You know, if you've got energy and wealth, you've got to find a way to grow it and share it. And so I think he would be concerned about the least of these God's children, wherever they are on the planet. And he would probably see poverty as the root cause of much of our difficulty.